Today, we're diving into one of the more intriguing yet somewhat understated stories of the Chicago Bulls dynasty in the 90s. Michael Jordan, widely considered the greatest basketball player of all time and the man that could do no wrong, had some unique relationships with his teammates, but the one with Luc Longley, an Australian centre, is particularly fascinating. It's a tale of mutual respect, moments of tension, and eventually the understanding that sometimes you don't have to love your teammates to win championships. So sit back, relax, because this story isn't just about basketball, it's about people, personalities, and the evolution of friendship. Luc Longley wasn't just another player on the 90s Chicago Bulls roster. He was the first Australian to make a significant impact in the NBA. In 1994, as MJ made his comeback from retirement, Luc was one of the fresh faces that joined the team. And let's be real, the contrast between Longley and Jordan couldn't have been more pronounced. MJ, the hyper-focused, intensely competitive legend, and Luc, the laid-back Aussie with a demeanour that reflected his roots. The two had vastly different personalities, to say the least. Jordan's famous work ethic and drive were in stark contrast to Longley's more easygoing nature. And yet, despite these differences, they found common ground. It wasn't an instant connection, but it was a bond that grew over time. Let's also look at the broader context here. In the early 90s, the Chicago Bulls had established themselves as an elite team, but after MJ's initial retirement, the landscape was much different. Longley wasn't just a role player, he was part of that transition period. The Bulls needed someone who could step into the center position and play solid defense and rebound, and Longley fit that bill. But it wasn't just about filling a roster spot. Longley had to adjust to an environment led by Michael Jordan, who was notorious for demanding perfection from his teammates. For someone like Luc, who wasn't used to that level of intensity, it wasn't an easy adjustment. As we all know, MJ's return to the Bulls in 1995 set the stage for one of the most dominant runs in NBA history. From 1996 to 1998, the Bulls won 3 consecutive championships, and Luc Longley played a pivotal role in that success. But here's where it gets interesting. Luc was never going to be the superstar of the team. He didn't need to be. His job was to be a reliable presence in the paint, setting screens, grabbing rebounds, and playing solid defense. It's easy to forget that the Bulls were not just driven by MJ's scoring. The supporting cast had to step up every single night in big ways, and Longley did exactly that. However, that's not to say that MJ's leadership style didn't create tension. Jordan's approach to team dynamics has always been controversial. He pushed people to their limits, often demanding that they reach levels of excellence they didn't even know they could. His famous mentality, "if you're not with me, you're against me," resonated with many teammates, but not all of them thrived in that environment. Let's be honest, if you were a player like Luc Longley, you probably didn't sign up for that kind of intensity when you first joined the NBA. Luc was more of an easygoing player, and the hyper-competitive culture that MJ cultivated was not always his preferred way of doing things.
Catch the ball when I throw it to you. I just throw it to you.
But through these challenges, and there were a lot of them, the two of them found common ground. Jordan knew what Luc brought to the table, and that respect was evident.
He matters to me. Yeah, he does matter to me, and his story needs to be told. And I'm pretty sure I can enlighten it from my perspective, and and give people his meaningfulness to me. As a teammate, as a competitor. Sure, I mean, there's some good and there's some bad, but that's all a part of life. You're gonna have friends that you have good and bad things about. But we went through the trenches. We shared a lot. We competed together, and I would take him any day of the week if I had to go through a competition again. If you asked me to do it all over again, there's no way I would leave Luc Longley off my team. No way possible, because he mattered.
When Longley was sidelined in 1997 with a dislocated shoulder from a body surfing accident, MJ didn't waste time calling him up, encouraging him to get back on the court.
No, it happens slowly, and it happens day in, day out as you practice hard every day, and as you go through the trenches and play with injuries and do all those things that you do. That's how you win respect. You don't do it overnight in the NBA, certainly not with guys like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. But probably the moment I knew that I had arrived was when I got injured and spent a couple of weeks out of the team, and MJ came back to me and asked me to hurry back because no one was setting screens for him. So once MJ starts to hassle you about getting back on the court, you know you missed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was rare for Jordan to show concern for anyone other than himself, but with Luc, there was a bond that went beyond basketball eventually. When you think of Michael Jordan, you probably picture a guy who could push anyone to greatness. His legendary leadership and intensity were key to the Bulls' dominance. But as some players have since revealed, Jordan wasn't exactly an easy person to be around. Luc Longley admitted in a 2021 interview for the documentary Australia Story that he didn't always love MJ, especially initially. In fact, he found Jordan's leadership style difficult and harsh.
I didn't love MJ. I thought MJ was difficult and unnecessarily harsh on his teammates and probably on himself, and I think, I just didn't enjoy being around him that much. And that was cool. It was cool with MJ and it was cool with me. At the end of the day, we found a way to respect each other on the court and to coexist, and that was cool.
And here's where it all really gets interesting, because this wasn't just a unique statement from some player. Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, and other teammates have expressed similar feelings about Jordan's leadership style. MJ's competitive fire was one of the reasons for the Bulls' success, but it didn't always create a warm, fuzzy atmosphere in the locker room. Now, was it all Jordan's fault? Probably not. In many ways, Jordan's leadership approach was shaped by his own experiences and expectations. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to annihilate the competition. And to him, that meant pushing his teammate to the absolute limits, even if it meant alienating some of them in the process. But here's the thing, Longley, despite not always agreeing with Jordan's methods, respected him as a player and teammate. They found a way to coexist. The differences between these two men, Jordan and Longley, was not just their personalities, it was their approach to leadership, their vision for the game, and the pressures they were both under to succeed, not to mention coming from completely different cultural backgrounds. It's important to note that despite their rocky relationship, Longley took the high road when reflecting on his time with MJ. During that same documentary, Luc explained that over the years, he had come to respect MJ for making him a better basketball player and actually falling in love with the game again.
I was still that kid from Freo who was reshaping himself, and MJ was three-time world champion, best player on the planet, had his own shoes, and there was me and there was him, and somewhere between us was the rest of the team, and we had to figure out how to be together, and it wasn't his priority, but it was mine. I'm deeply thankful to MJ for showing me how to be a better basketballer, for compensating for my weaknesses with his brilliance. You don't have to love a bloke to be on his team, to care about him, to play basketball together.
This is where we see the true depth of their relationship. Even though they didn't always see eye to eye, even though MJ was difficult to work with by accounts of many people, they found a way to coexist and win, which was ultimately the end goal for any team. It wasn't just about personal feelings, it was about the goal of winning championships, and isn't that what everyone plays for? And perhaps this is a key takeaway from this story. Sometimes you don't have to be best friends to be great teammates. It helps, but not always the case. The Bulls, under Jordan's leadership, understood that. They played for a common purpose, even if the personalities didn't always mesh. The reality of team dynamics is often far more complicated than what we see on the court. Championships aren't just built on raw talent. They're built on overcoming personal differences, pushing through adversity, and learning to work together for a common goal. Luc and MJ epitomize this. One of the most noticeable things about the Last Dance documentary, which chronicled the final championship run of the 1990 Bulls, was Longley's absence. While Jordan, Pippen, and others were in front and center, Longley didn't feature prominently. This wasn't just a coincidence. Longley himself admitted that he was disappointed with how things were portrayed in the documentary, and he felt it was a reflection of the fractured relationship between him and MJ at that time. But what's fascinating is how Luc responded. Instead of harboring bitterness, he took a more philosophical approach. In his own words, he said, and I quote, "It was cool with MJ, it was cool with me." He had moved on, and in typical Aussie fashion, he wasn't holding grudges. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, but it was real. They had their differences, but they also had a deep respect for each other as professionals. They achieved greatness together, and their bond, however unconventional, stood the test of time. This story is a reminder that basketball and life isn't just about the highs. It's also about the lows, the struggles, and the moments when we have to find common ground with people who might not always align with us. And at the end of the day, respect and shared purpose can transcend personal differences. To wrap up, the story of Michael Jordan and Luc Longley is one of growth, understanding, and ultimately teamwork. It teaches us that greatness doesn't always come from a harmonious relationship. Sometimes it comes from learning how to coexist despite differences. Whether you're in sports, business, or life, the lesson here is clear. Mutual respect and shared goals can lead to extraordinary outcomes. So, what do you guys think? Was Michael Jordan's leadership style truly effective, or did it create unnecessary tension among his teammates? And how do you think Luc Longley's laid-back nature helped balance MJ's intensity? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more upcoming videos and NBA content. My name is Damian Peters. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.